Section 11 of The Coming Race. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Mary Rhodey. The Coming Race by Edward George Bulwer Lytton. Chapter 17. The vril-ya, being excluded from all sight of the heavenly bodies, and having no other difference between night and day than that which they deem it convenient to make for themselves, do not, of course, arrive at their divisions of time by the same process that we do. But I found it easy, by the aid of my watch, which I luckily had about me, to compute their time with great nicety. I reserve for a future work on the science and literature of the vril-ya, should I live to complete it, all details as to the manner in which they arrive at their rotation of time, and content myself here with saying that in point of duration their year differs very slightly from ours, but that the divisions of their year are by no means the same. Their day, including what we call night, consists of 20 hours of our time instead of 24, and of course their year comprises the correspondent increase in the number of days by which it is summed up. They subdivide the 20 hours of their day thus: 8 hours, called the silent hours, for repose; 8 hours called the earnest time, for the pursuits and occupations of life; and 4 hours called the easy time, with which what I may term their day closes, allotted to festivities, sport, recreation, or family converse, according to their several tastes and inclinations. Note: for the sake of convenience, I adopt the word hours, days, years, etc., in any general reference to subdivisions of time among the vril-ya, those terms but loosely corresponding, however, with such subdivisions. But, in truth, out of doors there is no night. They maintain, both in the streets and in the surrounding country, to the limits of their territory, the same degree of light at all hours. Only within doors they lower it to a soft twilight during the silent hours. They have a great horror of perfect darkness, and their lights are never wholly extinguished. On occasions of festivity they continue the duration of full light, but equally keep note of the distinction between night and day by mechanical contrivances which answer the purpose of our clocks and watches. They are very fond of music, and it is by music that these chronometers strike the principal division of time, at every one of their hours during the day, the sounds coming from all the timepieces in their public buildings, and caught up, as it were, by those of houses or hamlets scattered amidst the landscapes without the city, have an effect singularly sweet, and yet singularly solemn. But during the silent hours these sounds are so subdued as to be only faintly heard by a waking ear. They have no change of seasons, and, at least on the territory of this tribe, the atmosphere seems to me very equable, warm as that of an Italian summer, and humid rather than dry. In the forenoon usually very still, but at times invaded by strong blasts from the rocks that made the borders of their domain. But time is the same to them for sowing or reaping as in the golden isles of the ancient poets. At the same moment you see the younger plants in blade or bud, the older in ear or fruit. All fruit-bearing plants, however, after fruitage, either shed or change the colour of their leaves. But that which interested me most in reckoning up their divisions of time was the ascertainment of the average duration of life amongst them. I found, on minute inquiry, that this very considerably exceeded the term allotted to us on the upper earth. What 70 years are to us, 100 years are to them. Nor is this the only advantage they have over us in longevity, for as few among us attain to the age of 70, so, on the contrary, few among them die before the age of 100. And they enjoy a general degree of health and vigour which makes life itself a blessing even to the last. Various causes contribute to this result: the absence of all alcoholic stimulants, temperance in food, more especially, perhaps, a serenity of mind undisturbed by anxious occupations and eager passions. They are not tormented by our avarice or our ambition. They appear perfectly indifferent even to the desire of fame. They are capable of great affection, but their love shows itself in a tender and cheerful complaisance, and, while forming their happiness, seems rarely, if ever, to constitute their woe. As the Gy is sure only to marry where she herself fixes her choice, and as here, not less than above ground, it is the female on whom the happiness of home depends, so the Gy, having chosen the mate she prefers to all others, is lenient to his faults, consults his humours, and does her best to secure his attachment. The death of a beloved one is, of course, with them, as with us, a cause for sorrow. But not only is death with them so much more rare before that age in which it becomes a release, but when it does occur the survivor takes much more consolation than, I'm afraid, the generality of us do, in the certainty of reunion in another and yet happier life. All these causes, then, concur to the healthful and enjoyable longevity, though, no doubt, much also must be owing to hereditary organization. According to their records, however, in those earlier stages of their society, when they lived in communities resembling ours, agitated by fierce competition, their lives were considerably shorter, and their maladies more numerous and grave. They themselves say that the duration of life, too, has increased, and is still on the increase, since their discovery of the invigorating and medicinal properties of vril, applied for remedial purposes. They have few professional and regular practitioners of medicine, and these are chiefly Gy-ei, who, especially if widowed and childless, find great delight in the healing art, and even undertake surgical operations in those cases required by accident, or, more rarely, by disease. They have their diversions and entertainments, and, during the easy time of their day, they are wont to assemble in great numbers for those winged sports in the air which I have already described. They have also public halls for music, and even theatres, at which are performed pieces that appear to me somewhat to resemble the plays of the Chinese, dramas that are thrown back into distant times for their events and personages, in which all classic unities are outrageously violated, and the hero, in one scene a child, in the next is an old man, and so forth. These plays are of very ancient composition, and their stories cast in remote times. They appeared to me very dull on the whole, but were relieved by startling mechanical contrivances, and a kind of farcical broad humour, and detached passages of great vigour and power expressed in language highly poetical, but somewhat overcharged with metaphor and trope. In fine, they seem to me very much what the plays of Shakespeare seemed to a Parisian in the time of Louis XV, or perhaps to an Englishman in the reign of Charles II. The audience, of which the Gy-ei constituted the chief portion, appeared to enjoy greatly the representation of these dramas, which for so sedate and majestic a race of females